This is a show about the ferocious pursuit of incremental growth from the inside out. And it's also a show about whatever else I feel like talking about, no matter how random, irrelevant, or confusing the subject might be. You are listening to the Emotionally Excellent Man Show, and I'm your host, Jason McKenzie. All right, before we saddle up, I want to tell you about the Dad Edge Alliance, which is my absolute favorite community on the whole entire internet. It's a group of, at the time of my recording, it's about 250 guys. It's growing all the time, but it is a community unlike anything I've ever seen. And I don't know if you could hear that thunder that just happened, but that is a sign that what I'm saying is truly, truly important. That's right. Thunder. Thunder happened when I'm talking about the Dad Edge Alliance. So listen, if you're a guy and you are feeling like your friendships or your relationships are superficial, you get around, you shoot the shit, but you're never going deeper. You don't feel safe to do that. And you know that there's something more. I'm telling you, join this community. It is insanely life-changing. Okay. Like we got guys in there from all walks of life. But they all have one thing in common. They're trying to elevate fatherhood by improving themselves. They're leaning in. They're supporting each other. They're learning from one another. They're learning about themselves. They're challenging themselves. They're setting goals. They're holding each other accountable. But they are all doing it in a place that's totally safe and totally just overflowing with bro love. And I'm trying to say that in a manly way. Bro love, right? So, one of the things that I've learned throughout my own personal development journey, which is a journey that will last the rest of my life, obviously, is that the people you surround yourself with that's one of the most important choices you can make. Many of you have probably heard the quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And when I first heard that, logically, I got it. Okay, that makes sense. But I never could have imagined what it actually meant. How transformative it is to get a better, higher caliber, more open, loving, caring, relentless group of men in your life. So that's what this fucking community provides. I mean, I don't know how to state it in a way that really truly conveys how I feel about it. Maybe I'll just say fuck a lot more. But I mean, the stuff that goes on here is crazy. They've got community calls. They've got accountability teams. They've got amazing content, free books. We're building courses. We have experts come in, New York Times bestselling authors, Navy SEALs to speak to the guys. And the guys are learning and they're growing and they're building relationships with one another and they're bringing a better version of themselves into every aspect of their life. So please think about it. Look around you. Do you have the group of people around you that are going to help you create the fucking life you want? Most people don't. Most people don't even know there's an alternative. And most people don't even understand how important it is. So I'm telling you from my own personal experience and witnessing hundreds of people have the same experience, it changes everything. Okay, so listen, if you want to know more, you can either always send me a message or you can go to gooddadproject.com/alliance and I'll put that link in the show notes page. Do it. And it will help you become emotionally fucking excellent. Now on to the show. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Emotionally Fucking Excellent Man Show. And on the show today, I've got Antwon Hoard, who's got an amazing story. He actually reached out to me on Facebook, and we got chatting about how we can make about making a contribution in the mental health space, and it led to us having a phenomenal conversation. And he is such an interesting guy. Basically, went from the inner city to becoming a professional basketball player, and really dealing with having a pretty challenging upbringing, which I feel like is, with my limited experience, obviously, which is all secondhand. But I mean, I think there's a lot of kids who grew up in that environment that have some pretty serious challenges with, probably absent fathers for all kinds of different reasons. And, culture of, the libertarian in me is just going to say it's fucking the drug war more than anything else. But regardless, be that as it may, Antwon, came through that crucible and went on to become a professional basketball player, and just got such an amazing way of looking at the story. In fact, we ended up talking for so long on the podcast that we didn't even actually get to the part where he talks about his own journey with, basically his, journey of emotional excellence. Like we didn't quite get to that part, so we're actually going to record a second part of the episode, which actually I'm going to record next week. He doesn't know that yet, but I'm going to email him and set it up for next week. But what a fascinating story. I mean, he's got some really crazy situations that happened to him, from being robbed at gunpoint the day before and having his grandmother's money stolen the day before he went to college, to being a tall freaking black guy in Finland playing professional basketball. Like it's an awesome story, and he's got a really wonderful perspective about it. And he's, vastly changed his life, even since he retired being a professional basketball player. And he's just one of those guys that when you talk to, you just get such a great vibe off him. And like I said, I really enjoyed it so much that I couldn't actually stop talking with him. So we had to cut it short and promised to record number 2. So without any further ado, I will say enjoy this conversation with my new friend Antwon Hoard, and we will see you on the other side, and also see you soon on the other side of the beginning and other side of part 2 of this amazing story. Enjoy. Hey, Antwon, and welcome to the show, man.
All right, thank you for having me.
Is this your first time you're doing a podcast interview?
First time doing a podcast. Podcast didn't exist during my basketball playing days, so this is actually my first podcast. I've done plenty of interviews and TV appearances, but never a podcast. So this is the first one for me.
All right, right on. Well, so we met a couple of weeks ago, and maybe about 3 weeks ago, and you reached out to me.
Yep.
And you were really interested in doing something to help out mental health warriors. And I was walking home from work, and we had this conversation that I really loved. So I guess, what are you doing right now? And what was maybe give the audience maybe a recap, or what caused you to reach out to me in the first place?
Okay, well, I'm a former professional basketball player turned graphic designer. So to answer your question today, I work as a freelance graphic designer. So I've always wanted to try to reach back and kind of, do something to help out in terms of the whole mental health issue. So I just happened to be trying to create some T-shirts and stuff one day online, and I had this idea that popped into my head to do some, because I was watching the playoffs. This is how the idea came about. I was watching Golden State play, and so I thought about the Golden State Warriors. And since I had mental health on my mind at the time, I was thinking about, okay, wow, it'll be real cool to do some T-shirts that says, mental health warriors. So I came up with this whole idea, the whole concept. So I tried to do a logo that kind of emulated the Golden State logo, except it had like kind of a Spartan's mask on there, and the mental health month colors, the green, and I added some gold like Golden State. So I came up with this logo, and so I like to work ethically. So I went online to check and see if anybody was using the name. A lot of people, they just go and do whatever. They don't really care, in terms of image rights and stuff like that. So I decided to go online and see if anybody was using the name Mental Health Warriors for any graphic T-shirts, or if it was the actual business or whatever. And it so happens that I ran across your website, on mental, and it was actually named Mental Health Warriors. So I was a bit discouraged at first, because I really wanted to do the shirts and put them out there. But then I said, no, Antwon, get out of your, the old monkey mind and really, really transform your new self. And just, it could probably go well. Just reach out to whoever it is that has the website. And who knows, you may be able to do a collab or something like that. You never know. And your idea still may come to fruition. So I went and checked out your website, saw some of the information, briefly went through the site and, read up a little bit on, what you've been doing and stuff like that. So that's when I decided to contact you. When I saw the Facebook link, I decided to contact you on Facebook. And that's kind of how the whole idea about me contacting you came about.
Ah, cool. That's awesome. So, and I love the fact that you got through your initial discouragement, and I like that you called that out, and that was an intentional action. Is that, I mean, I guess one thing I'm wondering is where are the Golden State Warriors located? Are they in California somewhere? Is that the Golden State?
Yeah, they're in the Bay Area out in Cali, so they out there.
Okay, so now when we talked on the phone, you had told me a little bit about
some mental health issues and stuff. So I don't know. Why don't you take us back to your maybe your background and let us know? I don't know how you grew up, what your family situation was like, what your what your upbringing was like. I'd love to hear how that contributed not only to some of the struggles that you had, but how to the man you are today.
Okay, well, okay, I suppose I'd say it was a kind of a mixed bag, for me growing up because it wasn't always all bad times, and I guess that's kind of how you can kind of get sucked into the vacuum of things seeming to be normal when they're not. I grew up with my grandma, my brother, and I, and my younger sister, who was born, when I was 16 years old. She was born. But anyway, I grew up most of my younger years with my brother and my grandma, and I stayed with my grandma, my grandfather, and my grandfather, and it was cool. We lived in a nice neighborhood and stuff when I was a kid and all. And, other families were there in the neighborhood. Everyone took good care of their houses, their homes, their lawns. It was working class people and stuff like that. So I had a pretty good upbringing in terms of environment. It wasn't all bad. Even though I grew up in Chicago, I actually lived in a neighborhood that was pretty cool at the time. So that was never an issue. My grandfather was a hardworking man, worked for Ford Motor Company. And my grandma, she didn't do much. She was the one that kind of brought in the really hard memories for me and stuff as a kid or whatever. But she was there. She took care of me and my brother and my sister and stuff. Albeit as a tyrant, she did it that way. But I grew up in inner city Chicago,
Hey,
and
where
I
were
spent a
you?
lot
Hey,
of
sorry, where were your parents?
my mom. Okay, I was going to get to that, but
Oh, sorry,
anyway,
sorry, sorry. Okay.
no. Since you asked, Jason, I'm gonna get right to it. My mom, she had me when she was 14. All right, so there lies the first nugget of I won't say dysfunctionality, but I'd say conflict. I'd say between her and my grandma. No mother wants to see their daughter, birth a kid at 14 years old, but it happened or whatever. And so, my grandma, because my mom was a minor and she was underage, she had to finish school or whatever. And my grandma, she ended up taking custody of me and my brother. And so we ended up living with her. And my mom was able to finish high school. And right after high school, because she had young kids, she had my brother at 16 years old. So she had two kids by the age of 16, which is
Holy
like, yeah, like totally out there.
God,
But anyway,
my daughter's 14, man. That is just almost
yeah, like you can't even
impossible to
fathom that.
imagine.
Right,
Right.
exactly. I got a daughter that's gonna be 14 in like a couple of months here. So that's just like totally out there. So you can imagine the disappointment from, my mom's mother, my grandma, and just the kind of the whole family kind of got all those eyes looking on you as a 14-year-old kid, with already with a baby. So, that was tough for my mom. So anyway, to make a long story short, my grandma ended up taking me and my brother in, and my mom, she finished high school and started working right away, like right after high school. So yeah, that was that part. And then, like I said, my growing up was kind of bittersweet because we ended up staying with my grandma and my grandfather, and that was cool because, like I said, they took really good care of us. But at the same time, my grandma, she had issues of her own because this is a woman from the streets, in and out of jail, stuff like that. She prostituted her body. She used drugs. She sold drugs. Like that whole inner city stuff that you hear about, all the rumors and the stereotypes of Chicago. Well, it actually happened like in my family, and my grandma was very much embedded in that type of lifestyle. And so she brought that into her marriage. She brought that into her relationships and the family. And she just had this kind of a hustle mentality when it came to dealing with people and stuff like that. So she was very, very, very hard on my brother and I. She did some really mean and horrible things to us. She verbally abused us, physically abused us, and it was awful. And yeah, I actually, despite the fact that my mom birthed us at such a young age, I actually would wish looking back, I wish I had an opportunity to grow up with my mother.
Wow, that's an incredible story. So it's interesting that your grandmother, I mean, from that background and the way she acted, but it sounds like your grandfather was a. I mean, did he grow up like on the, I guess, in inner city Chicago? Because it sounds like he was working a pretty normal blue collar job. Like, it's interesting that maybe it's two people of those backgrounds kind of paired up.
Well, the thing with my grandfather, he brought the stability in the family because he was the breadwinner. So he was making the money, and during those times, the women were at home working, taking care of the kids, blah, blah, blah. And, the man was out there working and bringing home the money and putting food on the table. So that's pretty much was my grandfather's role during that time. And he worked at Ford Motor Company, I think for like 30 years or something like that, man. So he was really a tenured guy over there. And, he made really good money and stuff. And he was the kind of hardworking man that I got to see every day go to work. But you know, he worked like 18-hour days, which was totally crazy. The only times he got off was on the weekends, and he would come home on the weekend. And you know, I didn't know it at the time, but he had a really, really, really bad drinking problem. You know,
Hmm.
I didn't think much of it as a young kid, but you know, we would watch football games together and stuff on Sundays, on the weekends with my grandfather, and he'd sit there in his chair. He wouldn't move all day. He'd have a fifth of Bacardi rum bottle sitting right there on his end table next to his chair, and he have his glass and his cup, and he sit there and watch football games all day. You know, just dousing himself with Bacardi rum like all day, and he would just stink of liquor and stuff all day. You know, but he was a really nice man and stuff. But you know, as a young kid, you don't realize that you know it's something's wrong with this guy. Like he has a problem. Like something's wrong here. You know, it's not normal to just be sitting there dousing. And I'm not talking about a little bit of liquor. I'm talking about a fifth of Bacardi, man. And he's finishing like the whole bottle, man. So I kind of grew up as that being this habitual thing on the weekends where I would watch football games and stuff with my grandfather and watch him just sit there and just, you know, douse himself in liquor, you know. And I didn't realize how much, you know, him and my grandma, they really didn't get along well. They found a way to make it work, but they argued all the time. They argued in front of us, you know, arguing, cussing, fighting and stuff. So, you know, my childhood, I saw a lot of stuff I probably shouldn't have seen, but at the time, like I said, it all appeared to be normal at the time.
It's interesting because it sounds so, I mean, maybe not to that extreme, but it sounds a lot like my grandparents. So they lived in Detroit.
Hmm.
They were Canadian, and my grandmother was from northern Quebec.
Yeah,
So basically she grew up, I mean, she was born in 1920, I think. You know, she was freaking dirt poor
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
northern Canada, and my grandfather was a tool and die maker, worked for General Motors for a long time, total workaholic. You know,
Hmm.
he didn't really have a drinking problem, but yeah,
Yeah,
my grandmother had a lot of issues with she was, I think she had a grade 4 education, so I'm sure there was issues of deep issues of insecurity there, and
hmm,
I mean just had a shitty upbringing, right? You know, her mom
right,
died when she was young,
yeah,
so she used to, she was always nice to us as grandkids, actually, because we didn't live with her or anything, but we would
yeah,
visit her a few times a year. But man, she could be nasty to my parents and to not
yeah,
to my dad, but
yeah.
to my mom, who was her daughter, and just a lot of anger and drinking, and so anyways, I can just it was funny. It sounded there's some definite similarities there. I wonder how common that kind of thing was in that generation. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, it's I can totally relate.
Hmm. So yeah. So anyways, you're talking about growing up there. So I mean, did you ever end up living with your mom? And I'm assuming your dad was not in the picture at all.
Well, he was around, and that's the thing about my
Okay.
mom and dad. You know, even though they had us at a very young age, you know, they loved each other, so they were together. You know, they weren't married when they had me at the time, obviously being so young or whatever. But they eventually went on and got married, and they lived together. Whatever they both worked. You know, they always kept jobs and stuff like that. We continued to stay with my grandma because, like I said, my grandma had custody of us. And then when my mom and dad eventually wanted to get custody of us, my grandmother, she wouldn't relinquish the custody. So there
Mm.
goes another conflict in there. And my dad had, you know, like extreme resentment towards my grandma from that period on. And you know, the only time we would see them were on weekends. You know, like during the week when they worked and stuff, we couldn't go see them because we were in school. They would work, obviously. But on the weekends, you know, my grandma would take us, or either my dad would come and pick us up from my grandma's house and take us to live with them on the weekends. So we would see them, you know, for the weekends.
Wow, that must have been like when she got custody. Was it temporary? Like was it like temporary, or did your parents actually have to until your parents were of age or whatever, or was it
No, she
like?
outright adopted us. So you know,
Oh,
my
okay.
grandma, she adopted us. My mom agreed to it because they had a kind of relationship where you know my grandma just kind of bullied my mom around. She was a really nice woman, sweet and all, but she didn't have a really strong character in terms of you know, resisting people and going against things that she didn't like and stuff like that. She can kind of be bullied,
Hmm.
so to speak, and so she let my grandma manipulate her. You know, with the whole custody battle thing. And so we end up, you know, growing up and living with my grandma. So,
Oh, it's interesting.
yeah.
So, hey, one thing I'm curious about, I mean, I know you said your grandmother came from inner city Chicago. I mean, what is your take on, as a Canadian dude who's had a pretty, you know, the first world life, I would say. I mean, what I look at what happens in say the inner city in the United States, and I mean, there's such a part of me that blames. I mean, I'm sure it's such a complicated, multifaceted situation, but I mean, I'm sure a big part of it is the war on drugs, and I mean, there's a million factors. But uh, what is your what do you think about that? Like, why is it like that? Where it's just like, I mean, I watch TV and I see videos of like Flint, Michigan and stuff like that. Like, how does it end up like that? And I mean, that's such a stupid question for such a complicated issue. I just don't understand it at all. And I would really like to get some more insight on it.
I mean, for me, I mean, personally, I think a lot of this starts in the mind. Like everything on the external starts with the internal for me. So I don't know, a lot of the institutionalized way of thinking, and uh, some of the stereotypes and stuff in society in America, stuff like that, that kind of, I don't know, it kind of breeds certain behaviors and stuff, in the communities and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And you kind of get, even though it may not be a literal truth, but you kind of feel boxed in, even though that may not be the truth.
Mhm.
Especially for someone growing up in the inner city, you might feel like there's no way out. And when you grow up around people telling you, you can only do this, you have certain limits on your life, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. Those stereotypes start to begin to manifest themselves in the external world, and you know, in terms of the violence and the killing and stuff like that. It's a stereotypical thing where you have to always fend for yourself and protect yourself, and survival of the fittest mentality and stuff like that. And it's an ongoing thing that if you don't deal with the mind, then people start to live and think and live these things like externally. So I don't know. For me, everything starts with the internal mind, and it extends out from there.
That's so interesting. So, I mean, talking about your grandmother, her being mean to you and stuff, like what kind of impact is that having on you as a young person? Like, I mean, I mean, it must be impacting your sense of self-worth. I mean, tell me about that, what that was like for you as far as how you looked at yourself or how you coped with it.
Okay, well, as kids, as most kids are, we like to, we curious, we like to play, we like to have fun, and you just want to be a kid, right? You don't want to have any limitations set on yourself, in terms of what you can and cannot do and stuff. And my grandmother was such a tyrant. She had such a hard life herself that somehow, somewhere along the lines, like religion kind of gotten away for her. Because she goes from this really streetwise woman to someone who's put in a position to have to now be nurturing, and it just wasn't her normal thing. You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
you know, she tried at times and stuff, but it was never genuine. It was always because she wanted some, or she needed some type of credit or validation or whatever for her own insecurities and stuff. But maybe because she felt bad about her life and stuff like that. So she tried to be really religious, and she got the Jesus photo on the mirror, and the Bibles all stacked up, on the desk next to her bed, and we prayed at night together with her and stuff like that. But throughout the day and throughout our lives and stuff, you can be a MF or SOB or whatever, at the drop of a dime. She'd call us names and say, "Oh, you guys ain't gonna be shit in life, and you're gonna have your women taking care of you. Your mom didn't want you. That's why she didn't take care of you growing up." And like it was just this whole negative vibe. And every time my brother and I tried to, I don't know, do anything to just have fun and just be kids, she would find a way to just, I don't know, put out the fire, just exterminate everything that we would try to do. And so you get frustrated as a kid, and you feel this anger and stuff that starts to build up inside you, and this rage because you despise this person that's been put in charge of taking care of your life, and they're not nurturing, they don't take care of you, they're not sensitive, they don't have a loving, caring heart. So you grow up not knowing what love feels like or looks like, you know what I mean? And so you
Hmm.
try to emulate what you see on TV, or what you may think is love, or you try to seek it in other areas of your life, whether it be women or drinking, or what have you. You know what I mean? Just to try to find some sense or some feeling of feel good. And my grandma was such a tyrant, man. Like, I mean, she called me some names. I don't know if I can curse on the podcast, but I can tell
Fuck,
you,
do
man.
it,
Like,
man.
yeah, she's like, "You motherfuckers ain't gonna be shit, and you niggers this, and you niggers that." And I heard the N word so much growing up in my youth that I just thought that was normal. And you hear that a lot. in the communities where I'm from, the dark skinned people, brown skinned people, it's a common thing, but it's not that common. And like I said, earlier in the podcast, it's like, you know, you grow up in an environment where abnormal things seem to be normal. Like my grandfather drinking like that was not a normal thing, but it became normal for me. My grandma speaking to me that way and cursing me out and calling me names and stuff like that and telling me I wasn't going to be anything in life. That became a normal thing, so you pick up all those habits as a youth and you don't realize how much, those things stay with you and stick with you into your adulthood. And once you get outside the neighborhood, once you get into professional environments, once you get into, college or high school or whatever, and you start to get outside of your house and you have to deal with other people, well, you still carrying on to that stuff. You know what I mean? So it built up a lot of anger in me. I say that much.
So yeah, no kidding. So when when you talked about that, you were kind of reflecting on it, I guess, from the perspective of you as the man that you are right now. Understanding that you were looking for love and all that. But I mean, as a kid, I doubt you were really. I mean, you're a kid, right? You're a young person. I remember what an idiot I was when I was basically all the way up to 35, for crying out loud. But I mean, I'm sure you didn't have that level of insight into your own feelings at that time. So what were you thinking? Were you just angry?
I was angry. I became very insecure. I lost confidence in myself. I was an artist and I became a really shy kid. I started off trying to be outgoing and stuff like most kids do, but you taught to hold those things in and you're taught to be a certain way around certain people and stuff like that. So I became, kind of secluded. I isolated myself from around people and stuff like that because, you don't want to be hurt. Now you got this, this fear inside of you of wanting to not be hurt again, because that's what you live every day of your life, So I became a really shy kid. I was awkward with girls and stuff like that. So, eventually I got into sports and stuff like that, but my personality totally changed from when I'll say 8, 9 years old or whatever, 10, 11, 12 years old on. I became a real shy guy. I was stuck to myself. I had friends and stuff in the neighborhood or whatever, but like when I went to high school and even grade school, I can remember, man, like I had a few buddies and stuff like that, but like, they were the real cool ones or whatever, or what people would consider cool at the time anyway. And I was the shy guy, not, into all the wild stuff and crazy stuff or whatever, because I don't know. I withdrew, from having this type of verbal and physical abuse from your grandma. It just makes you a certain way, man. And like I said, that childhood experience is kind of what led me into my young adulthood and eventual adult life, with those same feelings inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I mean, I see this all the time with people is. And I often wonder, even for my own childhood, I mean, again, it was fine, but I mean, I know there's things that happened. Just we are the culmination of all our experiences, right? So I often sometimes wonder if anything that happened to me, how it impacts me today. I really have no idea. It's something I should probably do some navel gazing on. But you've withdrawn, and I mean. How did you end up getting into sports? Because sports is, I mean, it's just team activity. At this point, you're not believing in yourself. Like, how did that happen? What gave you the courage or the interest to take that kind of step? And I mean, were you scared shitless? Was it a result of you being, not seeing any other way to spend your time? Like, how did that pan out? I guess
I was kind of forced into that too because my grandma, she controls every aspects of our lives. She never asked us our interests or what we like to do or want to do or stuff like that. So she would put us in different activities and stuff like that. Because like I said, growing up, Chicago's a really dangerous city, and as a grandma, even someone as mean as she could be, she wouldn't want to see any harm come to us. So she put us in sports to keep us off the streets, because basically, if you don't have anything to do with your life in Chicago, you can dabble into all kind of shit. You know what I mean? So she put us in karate. We tried karate for a time or whatever. I did freaking square dancing. I hated it. Like I hated it.
Oh no, square dancing.
Yeah, square dancing, man. So
I didn't picture like where you lived in Chicago being like a hub of square dancing, man.
Yeah, so she would take us to like the local rec center, man. We had square dancing lessons. I mean, I did bowling, man, and then eventually she got us into sports. I played baseball as a youth. When I was 10 years old, I started playing baseball, And when I was 11 years old, I met my grade school buddy, and he wanted me to come out for the basketball team. And his mom called my grandma, because we were real close friends and stuff like that. His mom called my grandma and asked her, would I, be interested in playing basketball? And so my grandmother signed me up for the basketball team, in grade school. And I eventually, get really, really interested in basketball. So that's how that all began. But it was originally, it was just a way to keep me and my brother off the streets, because like I said, Chicago's such a dangerous city and stuff. Activities is what keeps you busy and keeps you away from all the riffraff.
I remember bowling when I was a kid. I was in a bowling league, and you had these ridiculous shirts on, and like it was like a bowling league shirt. And then what they would do is, whenever you did something good, it was kind of like scouts. You'd get like this patch you could stow on it. Like, so if you got like bowled over 200 or whatever, you get this patch. And there were some people they were really good, and they had patches all over their shirts.
Yeah, exactly.
I was so bad, man. My shirt was it was just a dorky shirt with no patches on it. I was so bad.
I remember those times a lot. I remember that. Yeah, dude. Oh, man.
So when you got into basketball, how old were you at the time?
The first time I picked up a basketball and started playing was when I was 11 years old. I fell in love with baseball. Like, baseball was really my thing. Like I said, I was a shy kid, so I really didn't want to do it because I didn't want to be around other people. I didn't want to be around. I didn't want to. I had to fear failure and stuff like that, so I didn't want to be bad at it and stuff like that. So I really didn't want to do it. My grandma made us do it. We eventually started playing baseball, and once I got into it, I loved it. You know what I mean? It got me away from her. It got me doing activities. It got me being a kid again. Having fun. Playing. Seeing my buddies. Growing friendships and stuff like that. I eventually got good at it. Made all-star teams and stuff like that. So that gives you confidence as a kid. And it was fun. It was something fun to do. I got a chance to travel a little bit in the area, even though it was, just in the surrounding Chicago area. But I got to travel a little bit. Like I said, played a little bit in some of the all-star games in the area and stuff like that. So baseball was my first love. That was really fun. But like I said, when I turned 11, I did baseball for a couple of years. And when I turned 11, I started playing basketball. And originally, I wasn't really good at it. But I did like it, and I was having fun playing and all. I just was frustrated because I wasn't really that good. I like to shoot a lot, but I didn't make many damn shots. You know what I mean? So, it didn't start off great for me. But over the years and stuff, year by year, I started taking it a little bit more seriously and stuff like that. And it got to a point where I started liking basketball even more than baseball. So I think around the time I was, 13? I'd say like 13 years old. I had totally given up on baseball and just wanted to. I put all my energy into basketball from that point on.
Do you remember how you, in your mind at the time? So you mentioned that you have this, like, your grandma's basically berating you all the time, and you've withdrawn, and your self-confidence is low. How do you reconcile that in your own head as a young person who's also? I mean, so on one hand, you're feeling like shit about yourself. And on the other hand, you're excelling at baseball. Like, how did you think about that at the time? Like, did that help you? I'm sure it gave you confidence, but were there parts of you thinking that I don't belong to be doing this? I'm not good enough. Like, did you have any of that kind of stuff going on?
Yeah, you have some doubts, especially, during the times when you don't play well or you go through a little adversity and stuff like that. You have a lot of self-doubt and stuff like that. You can't go home and get any encouragement or something like that from your mom or your dad. It was my grandma. Like I say, my grandfather was working 18 hours a day. So he was never really around just on the weekends and stuff like that. So, if there was going to be any encouragement or someone there to help lift you up or build you up, it definitely wasn't coming from my grandma. So that was one of those feelings where you feel kind of helpless as a kid because you left to figure out a lot of things that you shouldn't have to at that age. You know what I mean? You're talking about between 10 to 12, 13 years old. And, so it was a lot of days where I felt empty inside, where I felt like I couldn't reach out to any adults in my life because my mom wasn't around. My grandma was not somebody I can confide in, and so I was left to kind of fend for myself at a very, very young age. And that was tough. That was tough because you feel helpless, you feel lonely, you feel all those feelings of isolation and stuff like that. And that just wasn't cool at all. So, I struggled with that early on. And again, I had these waves of, moments where I have, extreme confidence when I was doing well. But any type of bumps on the road and stuff like that, it made me go into a shell where, I just would want to hide myself, like an ostrich, put my head in the dirt and not even come up for air anymore, So, yeah, it was one of those, high anxiety moments during that
Yeah,
time.
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense actually, and I think that's something that that nagging voice in our heads, and I'm sure we'll get into this more, but I mean that nagging as adults, you know, I always talk to people about this, and it's like when you try something and you quote fail at it or you fuck it up somehow or it doesn't produce the result that you want. There's no worse sort of condemnation than how you judge your own self, right? Especially like so if you screw up, there's nothing that feels worse than saying than using that crappy result to use it as evidence to confirm what you already always believed about yourself, man. You know what I mean? Like, so never should have tried. I'm not good enough. What was I even thinking? Who am I to be doing something like this? Cause but it's when you are in those moments when things aren't going the way you want or things are challenging that you fucking need some people around you, man, to be able to talk through it and to help you rearrange your worldview and sometimes just to get the thoughts out of your own head, and if you don't have that, man, that would make dealing with the challenging times just exponentially more difficult.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And a lot of the adults in my community where I grew up at, they were working class people and stuff like that, but they all had kind of a hard view on life and stuff like that. So I don't even know if their guidance would have even been useful, helpful for me because
Right.
at the time they all kind of had the same stereotypical mentality. You have to work. You can't go far playing sports, and you need to get a job, and all this whole mentality. It's like it was just embedded in the culture, and I just didn't have a lot of real live mentors that I can count on. During that time, almost every coach that I met that I had during that time were people that would curse you out and call you motherfuckers and tell you ain't shit if you don't play well, you don't want it, you're not serious, and all those things. So it kills your confidence. I mean, it absolutely crushes you or whatever. But I can say this, like looking back in hindsight, um, even as a young kid, even without much confidence, even going through all the stuff that I did, mentally, I could honestly say that it was something inside of me. It was this small nugget of saying like, you can do something with yourself and you can do something with your life. I don't know where it came from or how or where or what. Because like I said, I had no mentors. My mom and dad, they loved me to death or whatever, but they weren't around much, so I didn't get much from them. But there was this small nugget of something inside of me that was always telling me that, I could get out. And I think that's why eventually I started taking sports so seriously, because I wanted to do something to get myself out of my situation.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm actually surprised to hear you say that a lot of people are shitting on you for wanting to pursue sports. I would have thought that a lot of people would have seen that. I mean, despite the fact that the chances of making it in any type of professional situation are small, I would have thought people would have encouraged you as you, looking at it as a way out.
I mean, but think about this. Like, I wasn't around many people that knew anything about sports. My grandma didn't know nothing about sports.
Hmm.
My dad played minor league baseball for a time, but like, he didn't make it. So basically, and I guess in his mind, he failed at it. So, that's another person who's not going to think you can go far doing something like that. My mom knew nothing about sports. Um, Most of the men that were in the neighborhood, that were baseball coaches and stuff like that, they were doing it just for fun, but they didn't see that as any type of long-term way of making money and stuff like that. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, during that time, most of the people had working mind mentalities, so that's what they wanted for you. They wanted you to go to college and then eventually, maybe go on and get a job. But nobody's going to push you to go out there and try to take your craft serious in terms of sports or whatever, to go on and eventually become a professional, which is what something eventually that I wanted to do.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think that even shows it's insightful into understanding your internal motivations, right? Because I mean, you really had the fucking deck stacked against you, man, and
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
fascinating
and I
to.
haven't given you the juicy stuff yet, but yeah, yeah, I did have the deck stacked against me, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, man. Well, but it's interesting that nugget you mentioned, that sort of that flame was never extinguished of believing that you could do something else. And I just find that fascinating because of where you came from, and because of,
Yeah.
there's people, and we're all different. And it's not a question of comparing one person to another, but I mean, there's so many people that have dealt with so much less, and that voice in their head is so fucking strong that says, I'm never going to be able to make it. And so I find that it's just super interesting that, again, that flame was never extinguished. So, so you're, okay, so at this point you're playing basketball, you're getting good at it. So I mean,
Yeah.
what happened? What happens next? So I mean,
Okay.
eventually you turn professional here at some point. So how did that all play out? As a guy who, like, I have to share my basketball
Okay.
experience
Yeah.
with
Go
you.
ahead.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead, Jason.
I'm like a short white guy. Okay, I
Okay.
am playing grade 9. So I remember when I was in grade 9, I played grade 9 basketball. So I was on the, we had like basically the grade 9 basketball team was totally lame, right? I mean, you had because you had the juniors and the seniors, but then you had the bantams, and this was just the grade 9. So we had
Yeah.
6 people on the team. So get this. I mean, 6 people on the team, and I still hardly ever played, man. Like, we had the same 5 people out the whole game because I was so bad that I was worse than the most tired other grade 9. So every once in a while, the coach would put me in, and I'd just throw up an air ball or two, and he'd pull me out. And it was the worst thing ever, man. Oh my God, it was so shitty. So, anyways, that was basically when I knew there was no flame inside of me telling me that come on, just keep plugging away, man. You can make it. No, not so much.
Right. Okay. Well. What about this? What if I told you I didn't even make my grade 9 team? I was cut from the team.
Really?
I didn't even make the team, man. Like, so. All right. To go back to my love for the game. Having a love for the game doesn't mean you can actually play the game, right? So
Right.
I love playing basketball more than playing baseball. But as good as I thought I might have improved and stuff, I wasn't that good. So I wouldn't try it out for my high school team when I was in 9th grade. And the grade 9 team that you talk about, tried out for this team. And I was cut. I mean, just flat out, I was cut. I wasn't good enough. I didn't make the team. All of my friends, all my buddies that I knew, they all made the team and stuff. So that really crushed me. Already not having a lot of confidence to begin with, and then going out for a 9th grade team and seeing all your buddies make the team, and you eventually don't make the team. That even drove me even more into a rut. Then, so like I lost a lot of confidence. I cried. I was hurt. I actually thought I should have made the team. It was a couple of guys on the team that weren't as good as me, but they did make the team. So, I didn't make the team. So I went home, cried my butt off, and my whole freshman year, just to avoid people and the shame and stuff like that of not making the team or whatever, and just being this kind of an outcast guy. Because without sports, I didn't have a lot of personality and stuff. So I kind of needed it for my self-confidence at that time. So without that, I was just a regular student, regular kid or whatever in high school as a freshman and stuff. And I wasn't that tall. I was only like 5'5", 5'7", 5'5" as a freshman. And I'm 6'6" now, but I eventually grew, but I was only 5'5" as a freshman. And so I got cut from that team, and I started hanging out with one of my closest buddies, this kid named Raymond Ward. And every day we would go throughout our classes and stuff during the day, and to avoid the rush after school, because you got all this rush of kids and stuff. Once the bell rings, getting out, going in front of the school, jumping on buses or whatever, cars or whatever, getting ready to get home and get themselves out of there. And so to avoid the school traffic and to not be ridiculed and have to be around other kids and stuff, after school on the school bus, what my buddy Raymond and I would do, once the bell rang, we would get out of our 9th period class, and we would literally run like a mile away from the school to another bus stop to jump on a bus to go home. That's how much of an introvert I was during that time. That's how little confidence that I had in myself at the time. I didn't want to be around other kids. I was I was ashamed of myself, and I didn't have a lot of personality. So this is what I did every day of school for my whole freshman year. Now, not making a team did do something to me because I really wanted to make that team. So that next summer after my freshman year, I went to every playground that I possibly could in the neighborhood, played basketball every day, started working out, playing as much as I could or whatever. And I eventually got a little bit better. So going back into my sophomore year, I tried out for the team, and I eventually made the team. And it was a great feeling. After going through all what I had my freshman year, going out for the sophomore team and making the team, it showed that if I put in a little bit of work, things can work out. So now I'm starting to build up a little bit of a work ethic, because I see, like, okay, if I practice and actually put in some time, then maybe I can be kind of good at this thing. So, I was 5'7" as a sophomore, which isn't much taller, but I was a little bit taller. And, I made the team, played okay during my sophomore year, whatever. So between my sophomore and my junior year, I grew from 5'7" to 6'3". All
Wow.
right. So that was a huge jump, like over the summer. That was a huge jump. So now, as a basketball player, you start getting girls that start to get into you and telling you how, nice you look, and they love how you play basketball or whatever. And for a kid like me, it felt good. I like that feeling.
Yeah, no
But I was
kidding.
also but I was also did not knowing it, being drawn into this thing of reward, right? Like, so I play basketball, so I'm an athlete, so I get the reward of, people acknowledging me, and, girls want to be into me and all that kind of deal. Like, I got into that stuff. Like, so, you start to soak all that stuff up,
Oh,
you
hell
know,
yeah.
and, and if you're not careful, you can start feeling yourself. I try to be humble as much as I could, but, um, after being, I don't know, bashed on for so many years, man, now comes a time where I can kind of be kind of the man, like, even if it's just, high school basketball, or whatever. So I grew to 6'3", played really, really well my junior year. My senior year, I made like all city team or whatever in the area. And I played well enough where I can get a scholarship, not so well where I could get a scholarship to any big Division I basketball school or whatever, but I was good enough to go to junior college.
Hmm.
And so, since I wasn't highly recruited, I went to JUCO in the Chicago area, to South Suburban Junior College. That's in South Holland, Illinois, of Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago. Played a couple of years there, and during my sophomore year at South Suburban, I went out and tried for a junior college All-American basketball camp. And it's here where Murray State came out and started recruiting me at this basketball camp. So I played very, very well at the basketball camp. Started getting college recruiting letters and stuff like that. And I eventually got a scholarship to go on to play college basketball at Murray State University.
Wow, I mean, there's so much there. So when, I guess, maybe taking that back a little bit, when you were, how did you, I mean, for a guy who's been kind of, you said, like, bashed on, you don't make the grade 9 team. Where did you even, like, what was going through your mind to even try out for the sophomore team? Like, you must have been shitting your pants when you were trying out, like, being just terrified of failing and not making the team again. But how did you, as an introverted guy who had to run to take another, would run to take another school bus, like, how did you get the mojo, I guess, to even think about trying out for the sophomore team and making it might even be a possibility?
I mean, like I said, man, some of this stuff, I don't give myself that much credit, because, like I said, it was something in me, and I can't even put a finger on it, but it was something inside of me, and I just feel like it's my destiny, really, in this life, and in this time that I'm on Earth right now. I just feel like it was always something that was calling me, and I can't really put my finger on it, other than the fact that over the summer I put in some work, and I started getting a little bit of confidence, because I started being better than the kids in my neighborhood, at least. And so I knew that I was getting better and stuff like that. So that gave me some confidence, at least enough confidence to go and try out again. And I felt like, I'm now the guys that were better than me my freshman year, I'm kicking their butts and stuff over the summer. So I'm like, nah, I'm going out for the team my sophomore year, and I'm going to make the team. So I was driven at least by that. And eventually, like I said, I started outplaying those kids, and that's what got me to do it. But where it came from, I can't even put a finger on it, Jason. I really couldn't tell you, man. I just knew it's something I always wanted to do. I got to love sports. I got a taste of it from playing baseball and stuff like that. So I knew the camaraderie that came with, playing sports and being an athlete and stuff like that. So I really wanted to taste that again. And maybe that was what drove me to really want to go out and try again.
So, I mean, now you're getting recruited, you must have felt like a badass, man. Like, I
Oh my
mean,
God. Oh,
like,
you can't even imagine, man. Like, you at home with this woman, and I stayed home with my grandma for my my freshman and sophomore year of college. I was only in junior college, so I was in an inner city JUCO. So I would go home in the evenings and stuff. Now, I didn't, at this age, I'm like, 17, 18. So I wasn't going home much, because I didn't want to be around this woman. I was old enough now, I could beat her up if I wanted to. I didn't have to listen to her and take her shit anymore. So it was like, I started to be a rebellious kid. I got some confidence from playing sports and stuff now. So now I really start being like a kind of a anal kid. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like I started being a real asshole. You know, to my grandma, to other adults and stuff around me. You know, I started kind of tossing my weight around because I developed a bad attitude. You know, because you go from getting, like I say, trashed on for so many years to now you feel like you're in this position of power. So now you don't want to listen to authority. You know, you want to talk back now. You know, you have a bad attitude. You got all this anger and rage and stuff that's been built up from your youth and stuff. And now that you're a young adult, you know, you start to throw those things around or whatever. So I did the junior college thing. And like I said, eventually Murray State came on and recruited me or whatever. And that's how I got to Murray State.
So now what does that look like? Are you there for 3 or 4 years?
Only 2 years. Only 2
Okay,
years. I did the 2 years of JUCO
Okay.
with another coach who told me I wasn't going to be shit. He played professional basketball overseas and stuff. I think he did a short stint in the NBA and stuff like that. But he was another tyrant coach, like my grandma. You know, told me why the fuck are you in the gym? Get the hell out of the gym. You're never going to be good as me. I used to score 50 points in Europe, and you're never going to play
Oh my
professional
God.
ball. Go home. You're not gonna be shit in life or whatever. Like, and I got this from somebody that's supposed to be a mentor in my life.
Oh
So
my
like I
God.
said, at that time I had very little respect for authority and adults. You know, I became a very very angry kid. And the thing about me, because I had this side where I could be real isolated and shy. I would hold a lot of stuff in, right? Like I would let a lot of stuff simmer, and I would tolerate and take it, and I would listen to it, and I would listen to it. But when things came out, they came out in a rage, right? Like I would curse people out, I'd be mad, I want to kick stuff and stuff like that. So that's where you start to develop the real mental issues, and you don't know that it's happening to you, but it's happening live in real time. And it happened because of all the things that I have gone through. A lot of the adults that I came into contact with during that time or whatever, it just made me angry. And then when I eventually went on to Murray State, my college coach was the same way. He was another reflection of my grandma and my junior college
What the
coach.
hell, man? Like,
Yeah, but the thing, like I said, Jason, like all this stuff starts with the mind and energy for me, man. Because I've learned a lot of stuff about energy and vibration and the mind, and how it's all connected into how things manifest in the real world. And basically, from the time I was a very young kid, this is the energy that I put out there because I viewed adults in this way. I saw people as normal. I saw normal behavior as being like this. So everybody that I came into contact with from my youth onward, that's the energy that I put out there. So that's what I got in real life. I
Mhm.
got another reflection of my grandma. I got another reflection of my junior college coach and my college and my university coach. So it was the same mentality. It was the same person. It was the same people. But when you that young and you that not in touch with yourself, you don't realize your energy is putting that out there. And so you're going to keep continuing getting more of the same. And that's what happened to me, man.
I think that's such an insightful thing because we are active participants in the world, in creating the world we live in. And
We don't believe that though. We don't understand that. We think things are happening to us and things are not happening for us. And when you put that kind of energy out there, well, guess what? That is exactly the kind of energy you're going to get back to you. And I've seen it because I've seen myself transform my life now today compared to, when I was younger, or even I say even just 5 years ago. Now that I've changed my mental state, my mind, my mindset, the way I think, the way I view other people, the way I see my life, the type of life that I want for myself and stuff like that, I've attracted nothing but positive people into my life now, whereas before I was playing the victim, I was angry, so I only attracted negative people into my life. So yeah, we very much have a lot to play in the type of life and stuff that we live.
Well, it's funny you say that because I remember when I was in the grips of being an alcoholic, and I remember it's amazing how things like emotions like fear, if you let them sort of, metastasize, I guess, how they can create exactly what you think you don't want. I mean, I'm drinking,
Yep.
I know I don't want to be doing this. I'm too fucking scared to make any kind of change because I feel like the alternative might be worse. And, what if I blah, blah, blah. Like there's so much uncertainty about being sober. Like as much as I hated drinking, at
Yeah.
least it was familiar.
Yeah.
And being the idea of being sober, I mean, what if I turned out to be a total fucking loser and I didn't have any friends and blah blah, all this stupid stuff. And so this fear actually created, so when I created so much fear out of imagining how bad the unknown might be, that I just kept drinking because it was easier. So I wanted to stop drinking, but letting my thoughts and actions be guided by fear actually kept me doing the exact thing I said that I didn't want to do, which makes me wonder
Yeah.
maybe if I just wanted to, I probably wanted to do it in the first place, really, because
Right.
because I was just it's this fucked up cycle that when you're in the
Right.
middle of it, you can't even see it, and you can't
Right.
even, and it's
Because it's
almost,
so familiar. It's so
yeah,
familiar. Yeah, it's so familiar. And that's the thing. It becomes, like I said early on, like it becomes normal habitual behavior, and you think that's kind of the way things are. That's kind of the way it is, or you even tell yourself like, that's the way I am. You know what I mean? You start repeating these things, and again, that's the kind of stuff that's going to always show up and manifest in your life. Because I couldn't see for the life of me, because I felt like I was an innocent kid and stuff. Like, why are these adults treating me this way? Like, this is so unfair, and life is not fair. This is bullshit, and I hate life, and people are full of shit, and I can't trust anybody, and blah 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 blah. Like, you go on with this whole thing in your mind, this negative thinking, and you don't even understand that you're creating this whole vibe by your own thoughts. It's crazy. It's crazy. But we got a lot more control than we give ourselves credit for.
yeah, man, I totally agree. And that's why I want to do this podcast, is because I want people to understand that you don't have to be, you can take the wheel. You don't have to be a passenger. So,
Exactly.
man, I love that. So, okay, so so you graduate, and how does somebody become a professional athlete? Like, how does that work?
I didn't know shit about becoming a professional athlete. It's funny because in Chicago, like I said, I grew up loving baseball, right? But Chicago's a basketball city. I
Uh-huh.
mean, like we got some badasses coming out of Chicago in terms of basketball. And a lot of NBA players, a lot of guys end up playing big time Division I basketball and going overseas and stuff like that. But I didn't follow basketball like that. Early on I didn't. I say I started following basketball maybe when I was like, I mean, even when I started playing, I didn't start really watching it until I was like 13, 14. I know 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. I was not watching basketball at all. I wasn't watching basketball. I mean, I played for fun and stuff because back then it was just, you go out and play with your buddies and stuff, and that was it. But I wasn't into the whole watching basketball and how do I become a pro and stuff like that. Because like I told you, I didn't believe in myself enough to think that, I could eventually become professional. I know I wanted to play basketball for being around the game and being around friends and stuff like that and having fun playing. So I know I wanted to do it for that. But in terms of becoming a pro, I knew nothing about becoming a professional basketball player. And I had no mentors. I had no people, in my immediate circle that could help me to learn how to get to that level. You know what I mean? So while in JUCO, you should start hearing little nuggets from people around you and stuff like, man, Antwon, you got an athletic body. You tall, you've grown to be like 6'6", you got, a nice build and stuff now. Like, you ever thought about becoming professional, either from my teammates or, I don't know. I had one or two guys that was pretty cool. Like, matter of fact, I had a mentor of mine. Dang, I can't think of his name. Anyway, I had a guy that kind of took me under his wing at when I was in JUCO at South Suburban. And, I would go and spend time with him and his wife, and they were really nice people. It got me away from my grandma. It got me into a loving family environment, because they were husband and wife. They really loved each other. So I got to see a couple that actually loved each other and kissed each other and held each other and touched each other. I got to see that for the first time in my life because I didn't get a chance to really see that with my mom and dad because they weren't around.
What was that like to see that?
Oh, that was amazing. That was amazing. Like, literally, I'm talking about 18-year-old kid for the first time is getting to see like two adults who are like really in love with each other, like madly in love with each other. That was kind of strange for me, but it felt good to see that. You know what I mean? And it even gave me some hope and thinking like, wow, maybe one day like I can get married and have somebody like this, for me in my life or whatever. So anyway, he took me under his wing and he started, trying to get me in the gym and working me out.
Actually, just
or whatever.
quickly, I just want to jump in there because
Yeah.
it's funny,
Yeah.
because my kids have some some friend, like some of their friends, and obviously some of them come from not the best homes, maybe broken homes, or maybe things aren't the best there. And
Yeah.
not that they're horrible, but and maybe their dads aren't as involved as they should be. And I'm so conscious of when their friends come over. This has actually just happened last night. Like especially like teenage girls, how if they don't have like maybe the strongest male role model in their life, how hungry they are for just to see and talk to an adult
Yeah.
male who cares about them and is actually
Yep.
interested.
Absolutely.
And I was talking to my daughter's friend last night, and it's funny. We were talking about her. She had broken up with her boyfriend, like my daughter's
Mhm.
friend, and we were talking about all that and what those
Yeah.
emotions were like. And her friend was so into this conversation because this is a conversation she's not ever going to have probably with her own dad, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Yeah.
and my daughter was like, "Oh my god." Saying to me, she's like, "Oh my god, would you stop being so awkward?" But it's funny. I'm
Yeah.
going to talk to her after a friend leaves, and I'm going to say to her,
Yeah.
I totally understand why you find it's awkward that, when I
Yeah.
talk to your friends about this stuff, but dude, they need it, man. And I'm not going to fucking stop. Like, because
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm telling you. And so her friend was like, basically, my wife is putting on my daughter and her friends, my wife is putting on a cooking class, like a cooking
Uh-huh.
camp this summer. So for 5 days, my daughter and her friends they're gonna be here, and she's gonna teach them to cook some really cool meals and stuff like that. And then at the end, they're gonna make
Yeah.
a meal for the parents. But my daughter's friend was saying last night, she goes, "I'm gonna be here. I want to be here every day in the summer, because it's so fun to be here,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
knowing that
Yeah.
our example can provide that,
Yeah.
like not only like a place where kids want to be, but like as you just said, like like an example of what might be possible for them. Is
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
treat
powerful.
that like that is so important to me that we model that behavior because I just feel like
Yeah.
it's such a contribution to these kids.
And it could be the smallest thing, like the smallest thing, like the smallest thing. Like the kids, they pick up on everything, man. So it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be some grandiose performance in front of the kids when they
Right.
come around, stuff like that. It just be yourself, be normal, show love, be kind, share, be generous and stuff like that. And when they see those type of behaviors or whatever, they're gonna pick up on all those things, man. So yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely, that's great. Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, you're around this your buddy's parents, and
Yeah, so I just his name just popped back into my head. So Gary Townsend, that's my man. G, if you're listening, Gary Townsend, that's my man. He took me under his wing. So this is the first sign of a real live mentor in my life, right? So this is a guy. He was a younger guy at the time. I don't know. Gary at the time I was 18, so he couldn't have been no older than 20, between 25, 30 or whatever. But anyway, him and his wife were together, and I went to their house. They used to feed me or whatever. He used to come pick me up for practice, take me to the gym, work me out, stuff like that. And he's the one who started putting in my mind, like, Twan, you need to take this stuff serious, man. You got the body, you got the build, you got the athleticism, man. Like, you could go on and get yourself a Division I scholarship. And who knows, if you put in enough work, man, like you could become a professional, right? So this is the first time I get from anybody in my circle that, that's telling me that, I could actually go on to become a pro. So with that being said, I worked my butt off. I started running miles and, doing the push-ups and lifting weights and working on my body and, going to the court and doing dribbling drills and shooting and all the stuff you got to do to improve or whatever. So I eventually got better and better and better. So when I went to the junior college All-American basketball camp, I played really, really well. And to go back to your previous statement when you mentioned, what that must have been like for my grandma, man, those college letters start piling in, coming into the house, man. And I can't tell you, like I was proud of them. I was a proud peacock at that time, man. Like I was really feeling myself, man. Like one letter after another, after another, after another, after another start coming in. I start getting my mail and opening it up, and yeah, this university, we'd love to have you come to our school, blah blah blah. And I lost it, man. Like I became so I, it was an inner arrogance. It wasn't an outer arrogance, right? Because I was, like I said, I was a shy kid, so I wasn't the gold chain guy and trying to show off. I wasn't that guy, but I had this kind of quiet cockiness about myself. So I started really feeling myself when I started getting recruited, and I wasn't nice to my grandma at that time because I knew I can go on and get from under her wing then. So it was
Hmm.
like, screw you, I'm doing what I want to do. I started hanging out with my buddies. I was drinking like crazy, partying, staying out at night, late at night. I wouldn't come home or whatever because I already knew, like in my mind, like I'm leaving, I'm going to college, man. That's it for me, or whatever. So to rewind all that, to bring that back, I got to give you this story that I told my kids today, actually, for the first time, because they knew I grew up in Chicago and they know Chicago was tough and all that stuff or whatever. But I never gave them this. I never gave them the real juicy stuff about my upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
So before I get ready to go on to Murray State, my grandma gives me a wad of cash or whatever to start off to go to school, or whatever, for my first day of school. So the day before I leave to go to college, I go out with my buddy Marcus Hoard. He was a woman chaser, whatever, and I was kind of like the tag along guy. I didn't have any game, no mouthpiece, none of that stuff. I was just a shy dude, tall, good looking, or whatever. So if I got any girls, they would have to come to me. It wasn't gonna be off of any of my efforts. So anyway, I'm hanging out with my buddy. He's at some chick's house or whatever, and we were smashed drunk or whatever because we were out drinking and stuff like that, partying. And it was the middle of the night, so it was like 1:30, 2 in the morning. I know I got to get up in the morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning to hit the road to go to school. So I got all this cash in my pocket or whatever that my grandma had gave me, because like I said, at this time I started to be arrogant. I want to show I got a little money in my pocket or whatever. And I was going to go out and just have me a good time before leaving off to school. So my buddy's taking a long time. I'm sitting in the car. I didn't want to be bothered. He was in there. I don't know. I guess he must have been sleeping with some chick or whatever. And I wasn't being a part of any of that. So I was already wasted. So I got in the car and I fell asleep in the car waiting on him. So I just got tired. I was like, shit, I need to go home, man. So I was like, I'm going to just get out and I'm either going to jump on a bus or I'm going to catch the taxi home because I gotta go, man. I can't wait on my guy. So I jumped out of the car. Now this is like 1:30, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning in Chicago, inner city Chicago. So I already know from experience, like this is kind of a bad idea,
Mm-hmm.
but I was so into like, thinking about my next move in terms of like getting out and getting ready to go to school and stuff in the morning. It's like, I got to get the hell out of here. So I get out the car, I start walking or whatever. And I'm half drunk and I'm walking down the street, no buses in sight, no taxis or nothing like that. Cause in the neighborhood where we were, taxis didn't run frequently. So I started walking, man. I'm telling myself, well, I'm gonna just walk until the bus comes. So I start walking down the street. And as I'm walking, like parallel to me across the street, I see a guy walking in the opposite direction of myself. So I continue to walk or whatever. And he was kind of a strange looking dude or whatever. He looked kind of shady or whatever. I didn't want to judge him or anything, but he did look kind of weird, right? So I walk past the guy. I continue to walk straight. And as we both get a little distance apart from one another, I turn back over my shoulder because that's kind of the thing you do in Chicago. Like, you see somebody shaded on the street or whatever, you got to see like, what's up with this guy? So I look back across the street and I don't see him anymore. So I turn all the way around. And when I turn all the way around, the guy's like behind me, right? He must have been maybe a block off or whatever, but he's now behind me walking in my direction. And so I start, my heart started beating a little bit because, that's not normal. Like, why is this guy walking in one direction and now all of a sudden I'm walking this way? He's walking behind me now. So I continue to walk or whatever. I try to, play it off like nothing's happening or whatever. So eventually I turn back around. As I turn around, the guy was probably like 8 to 10 feet away from me. He runs up on me. He got a gun.
Oh,
right?
fuck.
Yeah. He's like, get your ass in the fucking alley. Like, come on. Don't fucking look at me like that. Right. So he takes his gun, puts his gun to my back. And so he pulls me into an alley or whatever across the street. And so I walk in the alley or whatever, and now my heart's beating like a million miles per hour.
What is going through your fucking head at this point?
And like I said, I was half drunk, man. So I was totally fucked up, and I'm thinking like I'm about to die. Like in my mind, I just know this is how it goes down in Chicago. Like I'm about to die. Like you fucking stupid. You shouldn't be out in the middle of the night walking around Chicago with a wad of cash like this. Like you just a dumbass. So like I'm thinking in my mind, I'm about to die. So the guy gets his gun on my back, and he was like, "Give me all your fucking money," like that, right? So I put my hands in the air to show that I wasn't trying to do anything. So I put both my hands in the air, and I was like, "Go ahead, man. Like take whatever you need to take, man. Just don't kill me. Just don't kill me." I kept saying, "Just don't kill me. Just don't kill me." I'm thinking in my mind, I'm about to die. So he goes in my pocket. He starts fumbling around, fiddling around, and eventually pulls out the wad of cash that my grandma gave me to go to college. So he takes all the money, right? And I'm so drunk. I was like, "Man, please take whatever you want. Take whatever you want, man. Just leave me some money to get on a bus," like that. And I don't know what made me say that stupid shit, but I said it at that time or whatever. He was like, "Man, get the fuck out of here, man. I ain't giving you shit. Like, get your ass out of here." He's like, go, and don't turn around. So I started running, right? Like straight ahead. And I'm thinking as I'm starting to run, like, all right, he's going to shoot me in the fucking back and I'm dead, right? So I started running. And by grace of God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, for whatever reason, the guy took the money and took off, and he didn't shoot me. All right. So this is one of those shady situations that I found myself in that I avoided death at this time. Right. So my heart's beating a million miles per hour or whatever, and I was scared shitless or whatever. So I eventually go off to a payphone and call my grandma collect and tell her to come pick me up. So she, I'm definitely terrified at this time.
Oh,
Like, yeah, like thinking like how much she's gonna come down on me and talk shit or whatever. So,
you're probably more scared of
um,
your grandmother at this point than you are
yeah,
of the guy with the
exactly,
fucking gun.
exactly, exactly. And I'm half drunk and shit. This is gonna be her first time really like seeing me drunk as fuck like this or whatever. So like at that point, I didn't care, like, cause I started developing a mentality where I just wasn't giving a shit about a lot of shit other than sports at the time, right? So she came and eventually picked me up or whatever. And she was like, "What happened?" I was like, "Man, I got robbed. This guy took all my money, blah, blah, blah." She was like, "I told your dumb ass not to bring that money out in the fucking streets. I gave you the money for college." And like you said, she just gave it to me. She's like, she just really let me have it. Made me even feel lower and more fucked up than I already felt at the time. So, I felt shitty, whatever. But eventually she took me home and she, got me got me to school or whatever. And the next day I had to take off to go to college or whatever. But like that was a really shitty time because I go from such a fun time with my friend Gary Townsend, who took me under his wing, and the time that I was spending with him and his wife or whatever. That started to feel really, really good. And now I have to leave that, I have to let that go and start to go off on my own eventually to get ready for college and stuff like that. And the day before I actually take off for my dream deal of being a college basketball player, I actually fucking go and get robbed and shit. And then to boot, I get my grandma to just let me fucking have it like one night before. So when I arrived at Murray State campus that day, man, that next day, I felt a sense of relief, but I also felt very, very shitty, man, because it was now I'm in a new world on my own, kind of expecting the same type of behavior from, the new adults in my life and stuff like that with no money. And it was just a shitty feeling going off to college that day, man, like crazy.
Wow, no kidding. So how do you get recruited to become a professional athlete? Like, how does that process happen?
Well, again, that was another one of those things I didn't know nothing about. I was at Murray State to be there for 2 years, play college basketball. And yeah, okay, I said with my mouth that I wanted to be a pro, but I didn't know anything about how to go about doing that, right? And NBA, that was a distant dream in my mind. Like everybody says they wants to go to the NBA, blah, 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 blah. But in reality, I didn't believe I can go to the NBA. But I did think I was good enough to maybe play professional basketball, even though I didn't know anything about overseas. So I did my 2 years in Murray. My junior year, because that was my first year at Murray. My junior year, I only did 2 years there. So my junior and senior year. So my junior year, I ended up being like all newcomer team. I played very, very well. My team was in first place. We went to the title game, won the championship, and all that stuff. So I had some great times, in terms of success on the basketball court. And then my senior year, me and my coach, we butted heads because he didn't like guys from Chicago and stuff like that. So he used to really give it to me, talk shit to me a lot. Say you guys from Chicago are arrogant. I'm not gonna play your ass. You ain't shit. You ain't gonna go far. You have a fucked up attitude. Blah blah blah. And so I would try to get in the gym and work out and stuff like this because I knew I wanted to play pro ball. But he always catered to the guys from Memphis or whatever. He was a Southern guy, so he always catered to the guys from Memphis and those areas down in the South. But he didn't like the city guys. So me and my other buddy from Chicago, he used to always be on our asses about whatever, like anything, any and everything, or whatever. So I didn't like him. So that relationship soured my senior year because I would talk back, and I would rebel. I wouldn't go to class. I spent a lot of time with my girlfriend, so he would berate me about the time that I spent with her. That was the reason why I didn't play well, blah, 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 blah. So this whole spiral of shitty shit that's been happening to me my whole life is happening again with this coach. And now it's just, I'm old enough now where I can actually talk back
Mm-hmm.
to the, you know, authoritative figures or whatever. And we just didn't get along. So that soured my senior year. I ended up not playing a lot. Um, I don't know. I had some crazy stats for the type of playing time I was getting. I mean, I was playing 15 minutes a game. It got that bad. And I averaged like 9 points and 5 rebounds. The 5 rebounds was the leading rebounder on the team at only 15 minutes a game. So that told you a little bit of my potential, at least, as a player and stuff, despite the fact that I was having a shitty relationship with the coach. I still knew in the back of my mind that I was good enough to go on and play pro ball. So by the time my senior year is over, they bring all the seniors into this room and they say, well, do you guys want to be invited to this free agent camp? Because it's a chance for you guys to go on and become professionals if you would like to do that. So I signed up. I was like, hell yeah, like, I definitely want to do this. So it was kind of something similar to the junior college All-American basketball camp that I played in, that I went to. It was something similar to that. And it was in Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio. No, Dayton, Ohio. So I had to go there to try out. And there was a bunch of not college, a bunch of overseas coaches and stuff that was there, that were there to recruit American players. And so I played in front of the coaches for like 4 or 5 days and played really well in that. And eventually, this one agent, he wanted to work with me because he thought I had some potential to, go on and have a pretty decent career overseas. So I exchanged numbers with him or whatever. And eventually over that summer, he called me, was like, well, we have a job opportunity for you to go play basketball professionally in Finland. Would you like to do it? And I was like, fuck yeah. Like I went back home to Chicago after my senior year. I was there with my grandma. Now I'm like, 20 years old, about to be 21 years old. I'm thinking like, I can't live here because I can't use the phone. I can't use the car. Like I'm treated like a kid at like 19. At 20, almost 21 years old. So I'm like, yes, any chance I can get to get the hell out of here, I'm gone, man. So I eventually took the job to go and play in Finland, and that was my first job overseas as a professional.
Wow. That's cool. So, I mean, so now, but you're still carrying all this fucking baggage with you. Like, so you're a professional athlete, you've made it, but you still got you still got a lot of the same emotional thought patterns. And again, baggage. So how did that play out, or how did that hinder you, or how did that impact you as you move through your professional career? Or was it a positive in some ways?
I mean, for some things it was a positive because I had a chip on my shoulder because so many people counted me out.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me work even harder to be not only a pro, but a good pro. Because I could have went over there and kept getting, I don't know, because my first job, I didn't make much money, right? Because I didn't know anything about overseas basketball. So for me to make $2,100 a month at that time was like, oh yeah, I'm rich and shit. But in reality, it was guys over there making $21,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Playing professional hoops. And it's not NBA money or whatever, but you can live substantially better than you can, working like a regular 9 to 5. Yeah. Plus, you're in Europe, you get to experience Europe and all that stuff. So it was cool for me, My first gig, I didn't get paid much money. It was $2,100 for like 7 months, so I didn't make a shitload of money, or whatever. But I did have a chip on my shoulder, and I wanted to show everybody that I deserve to be a professional, and I can go on and have a great career as a pro. So that first year in Finland, I mean, when I say I lived in a gym, like I lived in a gym. Like I was already introverted. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to socialize like that. When I did, I had to be shitty drunk or fucked up to go out and hang out and stuff like that. I couldn't just be my normal self because I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. So the only time I would kind of feel normal and going out is I would have to drink myself into a stupor, right?
Oh man,
so all the rest of my time so all the rest of the time when I was by myself, I would be in an apartment. I like to cook, so I would cook myself these really badass meals and stuff, kind of nurture myself in a way, kind of the treatment that I didn't get at home. I started doing for myself because now I had a little money to, go out and buy the things that I wanted, things I like to eat and stuff like that. So I would cook. That became a everyday ritual or whatever for me. And I would go to the gym for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, sometimes 3 hours in the mornings to practice. I would shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and do dribble drills and lift weights and stuff like that. Then I will go and practice with my team in the evenings. So to make a long story short, with all this crazy ass practice and stuff that I was doing, I saw like a crazy improvement in my game from the time I became a college senior to my first year professional. I became a really skilled player, and I played very, very well my first year overseas. I averaged like 31 points and like, I don't know, 7, 8 rebounds or something.
Wow.
In Finland, which wasn't a big time country for basketball, but any league you can go to and average 31 points a game, like you're doing something right. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, no kidding. I can't. Yeah. I imagine, like, what was the culture shock like, man? If I'm trying to think of a place that's the opposite of inner city Chicago, it's probably fucking Finland.
It's definitely Finland. But here's the beginning of my transformation, right? And I didn't know it because that's exactly what the universe called for me. That's what the universe ordered for me because, like you said, coming from inner city Chicago, if I was going to really transform my life and show all those people back home or whatever that I deserved to make it and I was going to make it, well, guess what? That doesn't come without some type of life transformation. But I mean, it doesn't come without some bumps on the road, I would say. And so Finland for me was like, oh shit, like I'm in a country where I don't know what the hell people are saying. the food is like looking weird. I don't know anything about their food. They don't got none of the stuff at the grocery store that I'm used to eating. So that was complete culture shock, like complete culture shock. So I got close to one of my buddies, the American on the team, stuff like that. He had a Finnish girlfriend. He had been there for a year. He was a little bit older than me and stuff. So we hung out or whatever. And so to kind of fight my inner demons or whatever, I started trying to get into religion, and I started picking up the Bible and stuff like that. And because I didn't want to go out, because I felt bad about drinking and about my life and stuff at that time, I said, shit, I'm going to just dive into this Bible, man. And I'm going to let that kind of be my refuge for now or whatever, since, I'm so scared of being in a foreign country or whatever. And I just started reading my Bible, read my Bible, read my Bible, read my Bible. And I was really into it. And I eventually met another guy, another American that was on another team. His name is Johnny Robertson. His son's playing right now in the NBA for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And we became really close friends and stuff. So I met Johnny and his wife. He had like 5 kids at the time when I met him. So this is the second time I got to see kind of a loving couple, together. And so I spent a lot of time with those guys at their home. And Johnny was very much into the Bible and religion and stuff like that. So we would study the Bible, whatever, together. I stopped drinking. I stopped having sex. I didn't have sex for I think after the first time, I think my first or second week I got there, I slept with a couple of girls or whatever, Finnish girls, just to do it. It was whatever. It was no feeling, no emotion. It was nothing. It was just to say I slept with a foreign girl or whatever. So I did that when I first got there.
How were you treated there?
After that,
so when you got there, when you show up as an American basketball player, black guy in the land of the people as white as the driven snow. Are you treated like some kind of oddity or like a celebrity or
yeah, absolutely, good and bad. So I say for the males, the Finnish males, the people, the male guys in Finland, they hated you, right? You were the enemy. You were this dark complexion dude coming from, America, who they don't know shit about or whatever. You're a threat to their women. You're an athlete. So, their own insecurities come out or whatever, because you're doing something that they don't do, and they envy you because of that and stuff like that. So you got this whole racist vibe or whatever that's going on. It was a country that was full of skinheads and shit like that, man. So I would walk down the streets, because I didn't have a car. They didn't give me a car. So I had to cut public transportation. They gave me like a bus pass and all that stuff. So I would travel in the city. And when I would travel to go to practices and stuff, you would see like groups of skinheads and stuff throughout the city.
Wow.
Yeah. And one of the older guys that had lived there for a lot of years, he was a naturalized American that lived there. His wife was Finnish. And he would tell me, Twan, be careful, man. I know you like being by yourself and stuff like that, but don't travel around too much by yourself, especially at night, because I had to beat a few of these skinheads' asses, a few groups of these guys. So Greg was strong ass fucking dude, country guy, shit, whatever. He had lived there. He lived for the hustle, the tussle, and the battle and the fight or whatever. So for him it was sport, but I didn't want any parts of that, because I was this shy guy inside. And even though I was a big strong kid or whatever, now young adult, I didn't want to get in any fights and stuff. So that's just that's just who I was. That wasn't who I was, right? So I would see the skinheads out. And Greg had warned me about that. And one day I get on a bus to go visit a friend, my teammate. And so I'm on a bus and I'm traveling, and just like Greg told me, I say a group of 5, 6 skinheads, they get on the bus, and I see them and they see me. And I'm the only darkie on the bus, right? So they looking at me side-eyed, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go, man. And all those feelings of me getting robbed in Chicago and the whole city vibe is starting to come back into my mind, starting to play in my mind again. Here we go. I have to go through this shit again. So the guys get on the bus and they start to stare me down. And it was a nasty, visible stare down, right? So I'm like, oh shit, okay, I got to get myself out of the situation. So I'm catching a bus, and we take off, and the bus stopped, and the guys, they start moving toward me, right? And I said, oh shit, here we go. So one of the guys in the group, he takes his finger and he points his finger at me and does the how they like to point the gun at you type of shit. So he uses his fingers to go like he's shooting a gun at me. And I'm like, oh fuck. So the next bus stop, instead of me trying to get into a tussle or fight with these guys, 'cause I'm not trying to fight 5, 6 guys. Or screw that. I might beat down 2 or 3 of them, but I'm not gonna be able to beat down 6 guys. So the next bus stop, the bus stops, I jump off and I start walking, man. I just literally get off in the dead of winter in Finland, cold as fuck, snow every damn where, dark or whatever. And just to avoid any type of confrontation or fight with these guys, man, I just got the hell off of the bus. So that was one experience or whatever. But like during my whole year that I was there in Finland, like you would get people, calling you nigger or whatever in their language. You don't know that that's what they're saying, but they would call you nigger and stuff like that. They didn't like anybody of color in their country because they had a bunch of foreign refugees and stuff that were there too. And so they got treated really bad or whatever. Now, the women, on the other hand, that was totally different. Like the women saw you as this beautiful guy, beautiful skin complexion, coming from America and stuff like that. So they were all over you. Like they would mug you. Like they would literally like just jump on top of you. I mean, the girls that I had sexual relationships with when I was there, I didn't have to do shit. Like I was at the club, wasted or whatever, and they came and they approached me. They put me in a taxi, paid for the taxi, took me to their crib. I would screw them, and that would be it. Like that was it. Like that's how it
Every
went
young
down.
guy's
Like, seriously.
dream come true, man.
Yeah, like I had to do nothing. But like I said, like I used to joke, when I used to hang out with my buddy back home in Chicago, like I didn't have a mouthpiece, man. I was just a shy guy and stuff. Yeah, I was a handsome guy. I was strong, nice build, all this stuff or whatever. I could have easily gotten girls if I put some effort into it, but I just didn't care. And so any action I got during that time was definitely not on anything on my part or whatever. So yeah, man, like to go back to that, like they didn't care for people of color in Finland, and yeah, but it was a real racist vibe there. So that was weird.
Oh yeah, I bet, man. I bet. But again, it's interesting how, you're still running into some of the same issues, right? That you've really faced.
It's the same stuff.
Yeah, same stuff. So
same shit.
So now you mentioned you find the Bible. So I mean, how does your career progress? I guess. So I mean, just I guess walk us through that. Like, how long did you play professional ball? Where'd you go? I know you live in France right now.
Yeah. I played for 18 years.
Wow.
And when I first came over, I didn't think I would play 18 years, right? You don't go into that thinking like, oh, I'm gonna live in a foreign country and I'm gonna play professional ball 18 years. I mean, it's every basketball player's a dream in America to go on and play the NBA. But like, frankly, everybody's not good enough to, and not everybody's equipped to stay that long in Europe or whatever. So when I originally left, I didn't think I would be in Europe that long. I'm thinking in my mind 10, 12 year, window, and then I'll be done, come back home and I don't know, start doing design or something like that or whatever. So I didn't go over there with that type of plan. So once I finished my first year in Finland, I had played so well. I told you I started having like this inner arrogance about myself because, I saw vast improvement in my game. So I thought I was good enough to play anywhere in Europe. And that wasn't the case. I was good enough to dominate, little Finland and their small ass basketball culture there, because it wasn't a big time country for basketball. Like the real juggernauts for basketball was Spain, Italy, France. So I eventually wanted to get to those places. Right. So, my agent came back with a deal saying like, the team that you were with, they want to offer you $3,000 to come back to them, give you a little bit of a pay raise or whatever, and they'll keep you for the whole year. I'm thinking like 3,000, man. I just averaged 31 points and 7 or 8 rebounds. Like, are you serious, man? Like, I don't want that shit. Like, you got to give me somewhere. Like, you got to give me to France or Spain or Italy, man. Like, I don't want that. And so, because of my arrogance, I was given a real life smack in the face, right? So, I go back home, go to summer. 2,100 is not much money. Like, you think that's a lot when you 20, 21 years old or whatever. But that's not shit. Like, I did a lot of partying when I came home or whatever. And when I got back to Chicago, I bought myself a little vehicle or whatever. And eventually the money ran out like very quickly in the first couple of months while I'm home in the summer. And because I turned down a job in Finland, I didn't really have a name like that. I did well there, but like nobody in Europe really knows you from playing in Finland. That's not a country where you can kind of blow your name up. So I didn't get signed. And now everybody's starting to go back in August, end of July and August to play ball overseas. And I didn't have a job, man. Like I was hit with a dose of reality. Like I had to get a job. Right. So I left Chicago. I eventually moved down to Atlanta. I after playing professional ball for a year, I couldn't go back home to my grandma. Like that life for me was just like dead. Like I couldn't do it anymore. And I was used to being on my own, having my own, so I'm not about to go back home with somebody, I can't eat anything in the refrigerator. She's trying to ask me for rent money, but I can't use the phone. I can't use the car. I'm like, nah, the hell with this. Like I'm out. I'm doing my own thing. So I eventually left and went to Atlanta. And because I didn't get a basketball job, I ended up working a gig with my buddy down there in Atlanta for the summer. We did summer camp or whatever, and then that ended. I still didn't have a job. So now we're looking at like September. Everybody's going back, and I'm still not working. So I had to get like a real job, not just a summer job. And I eventually end up going to like a warehouse working like printing shirts and shit, man. And I did that for like 3 or 4 months, and I still didn't have a job. So November rolls around, and one of these agents calls me for a job in South America. He said like, yeah, they're looking for a number 5 player, and it's for 5,000 a month, but it's only for 3 or 4 months. And at that time, I was making I think $8 an hour at that job. Like I was getting really shitty money, so like I was really smacked in the face. Like going from my first experience overseas to now I'm back home or down in Atlanta working like a shitty job or whatever, not getting paid much. And I was scraping for pennies with my buddy at the time. I mean, literally like scraping for pennies out of a penny jar to go to Kroger, put the damn pennies in a penny machine to get a coupon to go and get like a pack of chicken and shit. Like it was that bad, man. So when this guy came to me and was like, they need a number 5 player in South America, I almost took it, but I didn't take the job, right? Because I knew if I did, I'd be kind of like cheating the agent and the team or whatever. Because I know once I got there, they'd be looking for a big ass tall player and stuff, and I wasn't that guy. So I didn't take the job, and eventually I got another call the end of November to go to France to replace a guy for a small club team in the 3rd division. It wasn't the level that I dreamed of going to, but at the time, like I said, I was scraping for money, so I just wanted to get out and try to get back overseas to redeem myself. So the job, again, it was another job for like $3,000 a month, but this time it was for 3 months. So I figured, shit, $9,000 in 3 months compared to the money I was getting at that time. I was like, I'll go make the money and then I'll deal with the rest when I get back here. So I ended up quitting my job, going back overseas, and I arrived in France. Now this when things started really getting interesting. And this is when kind of like my basketball career really changed for the better for me. All right. So I get to France. You got time to hear this, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. So I get to France, and it's to replace a guy. Now, France has a Pro A level, a Pro B level, and then they have what's called National 1. It was called National 2 at the time. So that's the 3rd level, right? So 1st division, 2nd division, 3rd division. So when I arrived in the 3rd division. Although I didn't know it was that low of a division when I got there, but I didn't give a damn because I was getting the money, I was promised, and so that's all I cared about. I just wanted to go there, play well, and eventually try to get back on, all right, to find something stable. So I go to replace a guy for 3 months, and it's a small club team or whatever, and I get there, and right off the plane, this is the kind of shit you got to deal with when you go play overseas basketball. A lot of people don't know about. I should write a book on overseas basketball and some of the stuff that you go through, because it's not all glam like people might think. But anyway, I get over there. They take me to my apartment. I mean, Jason, like the apartment is this shitty apartment with cobwebs. Fucking toilet is old as crap. The bowl, it got rings around it. The kitchen is old as I don't know what, like this old French apartment, man, like with just like old deco in there, like the wallpaper from 1945, man. Like it was just a creepy ass apartment, right? So I'm feeling some anxiety just by going in the apartment. Like, what the hell have I got myself into? So anyway, I pack my bags up, get into the apartment, try to get settled or whatever. And so right off the plane, I say probably, yeah, right off of the plane, I got a game, man. Like I'm in no basketball shape. I had been working out a little bit while I was at, in Atlanta or whatever, working and stuff, but there's only so much you can do when you work, throughout the day or whatever. Then you go to the gym for a couple of hours. You can't simulate a real actual game, working out or whatever. So I get over there to France and they asked me to play like right off of the plane. So I go and play my first game. And because the level wasn't so good, I managed to kind of wing it and get by. And I think my first game I might have had like 25 points or something like that. So I played well, and the team was really, really pleased and stuff. And so they were happy that I was the guy that was there to replace the player that they had. It was a guy that was from Russia, and they had never had a American player in that club team because they never had the kind of money where they could pay to have an American player there. So I was their first American player. And, I was a real flamboyant player. I did a lot of highlight stuff, could really jump. I would dunk on people and do like these amazing plays and crossover dribbles and stuff like that. So obviously for them, that's something they never had gotten an opportunity to see like live. So they fell in love with me in just a matter of 3 months, and I played great. I ended up averaging I think I averaged like 25 points for the 3 months that I was there. I was one of the leading scorers in the league. And when it came time for me to go, um, I was a bit down about it. But the general manager came to me. He was like, "Hey, would you be willing to stay like for the rest of the season?" I was like, "Well, yeah, like, but how?" And it's like, "Well, the guy that you came to replace, he, uh, he caught a cancer from the country where he's from because he was from Russia and they had some kind of outbreak or something like that or whatever. And he had caught cancer, so he couldn't finish the season, so he had to stop. So since he couldn't finish the season, I ended up staying that whole year with the team and played well. The team did well, and because of the success that I had, for in replacing the guy, they offered me a contract to come back the next year. So I'm like, I'm on 10, man. I'm ecstatic. I finally got a gig where I can actually come back the next season, be settled in a team that I already know. I know the players and stuff like that in the country that I kind of want to be in. And maybe if I continue to play well, then maybe I could just move myself up to the second division, which is what I really wanted to do, in the beginning. So I go back my next year, play really, really well, was the leading scorer, best player in the league, make all-star game, do all that good stuff. The team finished well. We played we were like top 5 in the league, whatever. The team started paying me like $4,000 a month, like my money almost doubled from what I was making in Finland. So I was happy. Like at this time, it was like 10-month contract. So it was decent money for me. Like I said, I wasn't rich or whatever, but it beats working a 9 to 5 back home. So I was there and I was in a foreign country. I eventually got them to give me a better car and stuff. And during my second year, that's when I eventually met my future wife, man. Yeah. Yep. So
And
yeah.
so did you love playing basketball? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I did. I absolutely did. It was times when it got to be kind of a job strenuous because people make it not about the game itself. They make it about all the other stuff, like the business stuff and having to win games. And, for that team that I played for, they were trying to move the team up to the second division and stuff like that. So they have expectations and stuff like that. So it wasn't basketball that I ever had a problem with. It was always the stuff like around basketball, having to deal with people that only around you because, this basketball star in their minds and stuff like that. And, it was that stuff that got under my skin or whatever. But I always loved playing, man. Like it's something. Once I got once I got the plan and really get into it, it's something I loved, and it was kind of a refuge from all the other shitty shit that was happening.
Yeah. So now you're playing professional basketball. You're building this great career, but you're still dragging around this shit from the past, I'm sure. So how is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the outside to anybody looking, I'm sure you've made it, right? But I mean, how are these, what you've learned, these experiences, these thought patterns and shit, how are they playing out in your life?
In various ways. I mean, like I said, I became a crazy partier and stuff. The Bible thing didn't work out for me. I tried to do it when I was in Finland. Like I said, I went a time when I thought I was going to try to be abstinent, abstain from having sex, and I'm gonna be this real religious guy. And I started to judge myself and everything that I was doing, my behaviors or whatever. And I'm gonna be a strict religious guy, and I'm not gonna have sex until I get married, and I'm gonna have the perfect wife, and blah 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 blah. And that's gonna kind of validate me in my life or whatever. And all this, things I've gone through, I can wash all that stuff away, through the blood of Jesus, and I got my Bible, so I'm good or whatever. So I try to do that, and for whatever reason, I had highs and lows, ups and downs. It worked for a time. I felt like I was being a bit too extreme. And then, I eventually got married and stuff. And, I try to bring the little teachings that I did know about the Bible into the marriage and stuff like that. But I never lived up to any of the stuff that, the Bible tells you that you should be doing or whatever. Basically, I start having this kind of a social mask, like trying to be one way in front of people. But then I would go home and feel really like shitty about myself. And then, so I don't know, you start feeling like kind of a hypocrite, so to speak. And so I felt like a hypocrite. So I eventually, put the Bible down, and then I would go back and I would feel shitty again, and I would go to the club and party a little bit and then not. And then, it was this whole up and down period that I went through, and I just became somebody. I didn't know who I was. I really didn't. Like, I thought I was a basketball player, a basketball star, but I'm not a basketball player. I'm actually a person who plays basketball, but, people tell you you're a basketball player, you're this, you're that, and you start putting wearing around all these labels, and eventually, before you know it, you lose yourself. And I got married, and I thought that would make me happy, and being in love and having kids and all this stuff is gonna take me away from my shitty upbringing, my shitty background, or whatever. If I get married and have my own kids, I can start my own family and create an environment where I can kind of control the love that's being filtered and all that stuff, or whatever. So yeah, it manifested the mental health issues in a lot of different ways and different instances. Some in uh, feeling like I wasn't loved enough sometimes in my own relationships, and then same with my kids and stuff like that. Sometimes I would feel kind of isolated from not being with my family. For example, when I was overseas, nobody called me, nobody checked on me to see, ask me how I was doing, how's my career going. Because in my mind, like I made it, I've done something nobody in my family's done. The first person to go and play professional ball overseas. I thought that was be something that people back home could be proud of. So when I lost touch back home with everybody, I would feel isolated and be depressed and down and stuff, and like, start questioning, like, wow, do these people really love me, and do they care about me? And because at that time, I really needed other people to validate me. I couldn't be happy with just myself. Like I said, I always had to have a drink, you know, like in college, I had my girlfriend, so I had to have her to kind of validate me or whatever. Since I was going through a shitty relationship with my coach, and I had my one friend when I was in Murray State, and then eventually I had a few friends or whatever when I got overseas or whatever. But then you start having people around you that you can't trust because they only around you because you play pro ball and stuff like this. So I had peaks and valleys, ups and downs, highs and lows, some good times, some really bad times, some depressing times. I had a lot of abusive behavior with the drinking and all. I had a lot of inner rage and stuff, so that would act out and play out either on the court. I mean, I've kicked basketballs in the stands. I've punched players before. Not a lot, but it's happened once or twice. That's enough to say that something's wrong there. It wasn't a repetitive behavior, but it was enough where eventually you kind of know in the back of your mind that something's not right. And I did mention the fact that I had gone through some troubles with a girl in Atlanta who I was dating at the time. I ended up throwing her out and kicking her out of my apartment or whatever because she was trying to impose herself on my life, and I was telling her that I'm trying to play professional ball, and I let her move in, and oh man, like I could talk, I could literally write a book and talk to you for probably 8 to 10 hours, Jason. Seriously, man, about some of the shit I've gone through, man, because I'm not talking about all the traumatic shit, because this is a lot of traumatic shit that's going on throughout all those periods. I'm talking about from high school to JUCO to the time I became professional, and then eventually get married.
Yeah,
and stuff. Like it's been a lot of stuff, man. Like coming home late from partying and drinking and fucking drunk on the road and about to crash your car, like just crazy stuff, man. Foolishness, man. So yeah, it's been a trippy ride.
One thing that's always been interesting to me, and I think, is when you look at it. So if you look at a normal person's like a normal person's career, typically how it goes is you continually get better, right? I mean, you learn more shit, you develop more relationships, learn how to add more value, you may move up the corporate ladder, like blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff. But I mean, with a professional athlete, it's different, right? You have a very finite period of time where you're performing at your best, and we've all, anybody who's watched sports or followed a team has always seen like the fucking people that just hang on just too long, man. And not, maybe there's no, it's for them to, I mean, it's obviously for them to decide, but I guess, when you're looking at, deriving like some of these mental health issues and emotionally driven responses to all these invalidating experiences you had, and then you look at yourself who's deriving your sense of identity as, not a guy who plays basketball, but as a fucking basketball player. And then as your career sort of starts to tail off towards, maybe tail off, but as you get towards the end of your career, and I'm sure you're not putting up the numbers you were in your prime. Like, how does that shit work in your head?
That's tough. That's a tough one. In my case, I mean, like I said, my first job, I'm making $2,200 a month, or $2,100 a month, whatever it was. I eventually doubled that, got to 4,000. Around the time I was, I don't know, 24, 25 years old, you get married, and then eventually I got the French nationality. In my case, it's not the same story for everybody, but once I got the French nationality, my income tripled. So I go to a six-figure contract where I was making like, 10, 12,000 a month. And then you start living the lifestyle, having a nice car, nice home and all that stuff. And kids start coming, all that. So yeah, you start eventually moving up the ladder financially and stuff like that. But like you said, towards the end, the money starts to come back down. You're not playing as well. You think you're a basketball player, but now you're starting to realize your body's starting to, tell you that you're not a basketball player. You're just a human, and or whatever. And this is going to end. You start seeing the finality of everything. So when that starts happening, man, like a lot of stuff starts going through your mind because you act. That's one of the worst feelings for an athlete is that you
Mm-hmm.
become a retiree at a very young age, right? Like usually retirement happens at 65, 70 years old. You talking about somebody anywhere between, I don't know, for some guys, 32, 35. In my case, I played longer, so I finished at like 39 years old, but like 34, 35 guys are hanging them up, and you're still a young adult. And if you haven't managed your money well, especially like I say for overseas guys, not all the guys make a killing financially. I eventually got to a six-figure contract, but I could say probably on the average I made 7, 8 thousand a month on average, which is decent money. Like I said, it was better than just having a regular 9 to 5. 9 to 5, but that's not like NBA money where you can stack money and have a pension and money put away where you could be, secure for once you're done. So when you start to realize that, if you haven't done anything to
Mm-hmm.
prepare for after, you can find yourself in a lot of shit, man. Which I found myself in, and a lot of other athletes as well. A lot of my buddies and stuff went back home and had to hit the reset button because the money that they made, even the money that they put away, even if it was a nice little nest egg, two, three
Right.
hundred thousand, you can't live off of that for the rest of your life. So guys have to get domesticated and get back to domestic life and working and stuff. And a lot of guys don't have skills. I was eventually fortunate enough to go back to school before the end of my career and start studying graphic design. So I knew that was something that I wanted to do once I got done playing. But a lot of guys, they end up leaving school, not finishing their degree, not going back or whatever, and then they have to go back home and start over with a few hundred thousand, maybe a few $1,000s in their bank accounts. After all the wild spending and stuff that some guys could do, and that's a scary feeling, man. Like now you know that all the people that are around you are phony asses. Like they're not gonna be in your corner when you don't have the money, when you don't got the house, when you ain't on the court, when you ain't on TV anymore. Like those people, they all disappear, and now you left to fend for yourself. And like I said, if you're not prepared for that, that's a kind of a scary place to be,
Mm-hmm.
especially for someone like myself who didn't really trust myself like that. You know, you got confidence issues. You got this whole being independent for a number of years kind of issues. Now you got to go try to get back in a work environment and stuff like that. And you're used to living on your own, being on your own, doing all these things on your own. And life changes, man. And that's a very, very scary place to find yourself, especially as an overseas professional athlete, because you don't make the NBA money, and you treat it like an NBA player, but you don't make the type of money. So
Yeah, I bet. And what is it like for you as a, I guess for a professional athlete, but you specifically, obviously, like to when the cheers, like, do you get addicted to the? Yeah, fuck, you must get addicted to like people cheering and shit for you, and all of a sudden, yeah, man, how could you?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in my case, man, because like I said, I got shitted on so much throughout my life, man, that I live for the crowd. I live for the hype. I live for that shit. Like I live for it. And like I said, not outwardly, but inwardly, I loved it. Like I loved it. I wasn't a flamboyant guy like that. You got some guys that walk around, they want to show you that they driving a big car and a truck. I was never really into that shit or whatever. But in terms of basketball, the sport, and the love that I got from being a professional athlete, like I loved it. Like the crowd coming, cheering for me, screaming your name, all that shit, being on the court, making the big plays, showing all the emotion. Like I live for that. Like all the emotion that I didn't show, away from the court, on the court, like I was a badass, man. Like a badass. Like I would scream, yell, all the emotion that will build up. I would get it all out when I played, man, and it becomes super, incredibly addictive. And when the lights turn down and the crowd goes away, man, and you left to fend for yourself on your own after it's all said and done, that's just a dark, dark, dark place to be, man. Like it just happens in an instant, at the snap of a finger. It's all over and done. And it's like, wow, how do I get that rush? How do I get that feeling again now
Yeah.
out here in what we like to call the real world? Um, that's tough, man. And a lot of guys go into depression. I know I've gone into depression myself. Actually, I went through depression early on in my professional career. It stuck with me throughout my professional career, and even got worse after I was done playing basketball, man.
Yeah, I can imagine. You know what, man? You know what I'm thinking here? Actually, I actually have to run. I didn't think we were going to talk this long, but I think we should. Do you want to record? Because I mean, we haven't even gotten to the part like about how you're thinking today, which I think is super important. Would you be open to like doing a second part to this?
Oh my God. Come on, Jason, man. Like, if you invite me 20 times, I'm going to come back 20 times, man. Because, like I said, I got a lot of stuff to share, man. Like, you getting small nuggets of a large window of a story of my life, man. Like, I got so much stuff to share, man. So, absolutely, man. If you invite me back, I'll be more than happy to come back.
Yeah, because I really, really want to talk to you about is how you've gone from, from this upbringing in the spot to the way you think today, which is really pretty in line with the way I'm thinking. And I think it's a super powerful message. So I love that we set the table here, and then when we come back, we can get right into all that kind of stuff because I think that you just have such an amazing message to share.
Great, man. Great, great, great. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Just anytime you let me know, and I'll be here.
Yeah, we'll do it soon. Okay, let me. Well, so first of all, thanks. I mean, thank you, man. This conversation, I fucking love this. It's just, it's been great. So yeah, let's. We'll do a part. We'll call this part one, and then after we stop recording here, let's set up a time to record part two and get into the stuff that I think. Many people around the world need to hear.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, man. So yeah, I was stumbling and fumbling a little bit today, but I'll be better the next time, man. It's good.
No, you did great, man. You did great.
And there you have it. So I can see, I'm assuming you can see just by the ease, what an easy guy Antwon is to talk to, how we kind of ended up rambling on a little longer than I planned, much longer than I planned, but be that as it may, that happens sometimes. And I love long form conversations. They give just such an awesome chance to learn about one another. And it gives us a chance to continue in part two of this amazing conversation. So thanks, buddy. Thank you for all the work you're doing. Thank you for reaching out to me and asking how you could make a positive contribution in the, mental health space, I guess you could say. You're a great guy and you got a lot to offer, and I love talking to you, brother. So take care. Thanks for listening to the Emotionally Excellent Man Show. Now, go own your shit like the powerful, handsome boss man that you are.